Hey guys, this is John. I'm playing Klojo in the 15-minute pool on ICC. I'm going to open with e4 this game. We have an opponent who's rated 17-17, a little bit low, but I've been having a hard time getting games in the 15-minute pool lately. I think it kind of depends on what time of day it is, how many of the top guys are online, because there aren't that many people who actively play this pool. But that doesn't mean we can't get instructive games. I'm going to play... Should I play a Giuoco Piano or a Roy Lopez? Or maybe a Scotch? D4. I've had Giuoco Piano games mainly from the black side, so it might be interesting to play it from the white side. Let's give it a shot. We'll play Bishop C4. And most of the time, black plays either Knight F6 or Bishop C5. If Bishop C5, I'll play C3. And if they play Knight F6 at that point, I'll have to decide if I want to play the game sharply with D4 or play in more restrained fashion with D3, which would probably be my inclination. So first I'll play C3 though. Interestingly, this is the same opening I advocate players play from the white side at lower levels. And you can see that in this new series I started called Climbing the Rating Ladder. I advocated that C3 be your choice on move 4 if you're a low-rated player, because it's a good opening to try to prepare D4 and take over the center. And it often catches a lot of players off guard, to be honest. Not at higher levels, but at lower levels. And you can build up a big center very quickly. Queen e7 is a move I faced long ago, actually. I'm going to castle. I remember facing this from a player at a chess club that I still go to on occasion here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Player by the name of Dan Vogie. He's actually a legendary tournament director in these parts. He's the one guy who's been running tournaments in the state of Minnesota forever, and we owe him a tremendous debt of gratitude, actually. But he likes this line with Queen e7, so it's interesting to run into it now. The point of that move is, on the previous move, if I had played d4, he could take, and then if I were to take back, there'd be queen takes e4 check. So he's indirectly preventing d4 for a move. Okay, now he plays knight f6. I thought that d6 was the move, but I will readily admit that my memory of this line is pretty hazy. So I don't see any reason not to play d4 anymore. So if I play d4 and he takes, I take. Yeah, I mean, my e4 pawn will be attacked twice, but he doesn't have time to take that because his bishop is hanging. So what if d4 and he just drops the bishop back to, let's say, b6? Well, then I would think at the very least I can simply play rook e1 and defend my e4 pawn. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and play d4 and see if he'll take or not. And he drops the bishop back. That's probably smart, because if he took, he would have no foothold in the center. At least this way, he's ensuring that if I take, he can recapture with this knight, and I only have one remaining center pawn as opposed to a center pawn duo. I'm just going to play rook e1. I'm going to maintain the pawn tension. I don't want to advance d5 yet, even though I would gain a tempo attacking his knight. I don't want to block off my light square bishop. So I'd rather keep that diagonal open. h6, so this stops a piece from coming to g5, but it does weaken some squares on his king side. For instance, a move that immediately catches my eye now is knight h4, trying to come into the f5 square. Looks a bit sketchy to do it right away, though. Knight h4 is moving a piece to the edge of the board onto an undefended square, and I lose control over d4. Moreover, I think he could maybe play d6, and his bishop on c8 would be covering the f5 square. Knight bd2 is possible, a standard maneuver that many of you will be aware of if you play this line or you play the Roy Lopez, is knight bd2 to f1 to g3, transferring the knight to the king side. I just wonder if knight bd2, if he can grab on e4 then, or on d4 rather. I could play e5. Not 100% certain about that continuation. I feel like he'll play d6 very soon, though. No matter what I do here. So I have a decision. I want to play knight bd2 to f1, but I don't want to lose contact with my d-pawn. Knight bd2, e takes d4, e5. He probably has to move the knight then, so knight g4, let's say. Maybe I could just recapture on d4 then. Because if he takes on d4, let's say with the knight, I take with my knight, and I would be opening up a discovered attack on his knight on g4. So maybe that's the tactical justification for knight bd2. So again, that line is knight bd2. If e takes d4, attempting to win a pawn, I'll play e5. And if knight g4, I can recapture. Because regardless of which way he takes on d4, I have knight takes and that knight on g4 is hanging. Now a complicating factor is, if knight bd2, e takes d4, e5, he doesn't have to move his knight to g4. He could go to h5 or g8. But I have to believe I'm going to have compensation in either of those cases. h5 is an exposed square. Actually, I could take on d4, and that's the same tactical justification as before. His knight is loose. g8 just looks horrible. h7 also looks bad. He can go there too. Okay, that's enough for me. I'm not going to calculate further. I think that's sufficient to play this move, knight bd2. It'd be a little gutsy to take on d4 as well. I don't think that's a move that black normally would be jumping for joy to play in this line. I predict he just plays solid with d6, actually. I don't think he'll chance it with e takes d4. And if d6, I'll likely play knight f1, and then my queen will be assisting in the defense of the d4 pawn once again. He could bring his bishop into g4 at that point. But I feel like I'm going to have good play. Like, okay, I'm just going to play this move quickly. But if bishop g4, my plan is to play knight e3, attacking the bishop and eyeing d5 and also f5. Okay, he does play that. Yeah, so he's trying to get me to resolve the tension on d4 by indirectly pressuring it. So by pressuring the knight and pinning me, he's attempting to make me push or maybe take on e5, neither of which looks tremendously appetizing. But I think this knight e3 move looks pretty good. Knight e3, let's say bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, e takes d4, knight f5. Then I'm hitting his queen, I'm hitting this pawn. I am going to get a lot of play out of that. I feel that way. So knight e3, let's do it. At longer time controls, you can't make as many decisions based on feel, but in a rapid time control like this, your intuition is often the only thing you have to rely upon. You can calculate, you can try to crunch the numbers, do the math, but with 15 minutes and no increment, intuition is going to be playing a large role. So he just castles. He shows that he's not worried about knight takes g4. I could just take, grab the bishop pair. His knight would be hanging there, but I don't see a way to exploit it. h3 makes sense too. What if h3 and then, let's say, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, e takes d4 once again, knight f5. Then I'm pressuring the queen, I'm pressuring the g7 pawn as well. It's dangerous for him. There's other moves too. There's moves like knight d5 now, just right away. Knight d5, knight takes d5, e takes d5, opening the e file towards his queen. But playing h3 seems like the most dynamic way of proceeding if I want to ensure that I win this f5 square. Let's check that line again. h3, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, e takes d4, knight f5. Let's say queen d8, maybe queen g3, threatening mate, knight h5, queen g4, threatening the knight. That feels very good for me. Gonna use the F word, feels. It's only one pawn too, and I might even be winning his h6 pawn. I mean, in that line, I probably would. He'd have to play g6 to protect his knight on h5, and h6 falls. Knight takes g4 would be a safe way to play for an edge right now. I could definitely play knight takes g4, knight takes g4, h3. Maybe I even maneuver my knight into f5 via h4. Knight takes g4, knight takes g4, h3, knight f6, knight h4 is absolutely possible right now. Albeit a little slower. It's down to those two lines. So if h3 right away, he could also drop the bishop back to d7. I mean, that's an option too. So maybe knight takes g4. I'm sort of leaning towards knight takes g4 once again. Just a risk-free way to pressure his position. h3, bishop d7, knight d5. All right, we're going for the bishops. I hope the engine doesn't say that I'm wimping out when I look at the eval after the game. But this is such a clear plan. I mean, it's hard to resist. So knight takes g4, h3, knight f6, knight h4. My knight is on an undefended square there, but he can't play knight takes e4 because I have rook takes e4 defending it. Well, let's first kick this knight out. I was just calculating if knight f6, knight h4, e takes d4, whether that's possible. Idea knight f5, queen e5. That might actually be playable for him. Knight h4, e takes d4. Knight f5, queen e5. So maybe I wait on knight h4 for another move or so. Maybe queen d3? Queen d3, there might be knight a5 to inconvenience me. Try to go after that light square bishop. I have bishop b5 then, though, if needed. I was really all set to play knight h4. Oh, you know what? I've been overlooking for a while. Knight h4, e takes d4. I have knight g6, of course. I was so focused on the f5 square, I forgot about knight g6. All right, I have 6 minutes, so I'm going to play this move. But yeah, e takes d4, knight g6, and his f-pawn is pinned. Strangely, that kind of flitted across my brain when I was originally calculating knight takes g4 a couple moves ago. But I got so laser focused on f5, I neglected to look at knight g6, which is just winning the exchange in a lot of lines. Point being, his f-pawn is pinned, and I'd be forking his queen and his rook. That's kind of a drawback of the h6 move on move 7, by the way. Good illustration of tunnel vision right there. I nearly missed this resource because the f5 square was consuming my thoughts. It's so hard to develop full board awareness, guys. Like even at my level, sometimes I'll focus in on one operation, especially at fast time controls, and it's like you want so bad for a particular idea to work. It's difficult to tear yourself away. Yeah, and he overlooked my threat. He's allowing knight g6. He's probably preparing for knight f5, queen f6, avoiding too much trouble with the knight f5 business, but this move is simply winning the exchange. Now, he can play queen f6, and after knight takes f8, just recapture, and I do have some trouble here. But I don't think it should be enough compensation for him. So let's go ahead and bank that. A slight problem, though, is that I can't take on e5 because of bishop takes f2. So maybe just bishop e3. Just checking to see if there's anything more aggressive I can try, but I'll probably go with bishop e3, barring something better. Yeah, let's just do that. We're giving him one pawn back, but I'll still be up 1 point of material. I'm down to 5:15. He's doubled me up on time. But the position is clarified somewhat. He can try to get a strong knight in on d4, but in order to do that, he'll have to make some weaknesses, I think. Like one line is bishop takes d4, knight takes d4. It's hard to chase that knight away, but in order to support that piece, he would need to play c5, which creates a backward d-pawn, and my bishop could be well placed on like d5, for instance. So I think that ought to be okay. Yeah, he should take this pawn. I think he's just debating which way to capture it right now. He could take it with knight or bishop. If knight takes, I won't take it with my bishop. I'll just let it sit there. He does take with the bishop. Okay, so I'm thinking just trade. He's attacking this b2 pawn, so there isn't a whole lot of other moves to debate. I think just trade, and if knight takes d4, just go rook c1 is fine. Maybe preparing f4 makes sense too, but rook c1 seems like a sensible continuation. Covers the c2 square as well. Yeah, let's do that. Maybe I can swing the rook up to c3 if needed. If for some reason I need it to assist in the defense of f3 or h3. So let's see what kind of trouble he can create for us in the remaining time here. All right, so I think I'm going to play bishop d5. We'll stick the bishop in. We'll hit the b7 pawn. I might play b4 as an undermining measure. So if b4, if he takes it, I have rook c4, hitting the knight and also hitting that b pawn. So let's do that. I'm attempting to open the position. I want to open lines for my rooks. I have 2 rooks. He only has 1. He would love to keep the position closed because he has a pair of knights. I think he should just leave this pawn on c5. He should not take. Because if he takes, as I said, rook c4 looks like an effective reply. Maybe queen a4 was another move I could have considered, going after the a7 pawn. This seems okay. If I take, I wonder which way he would recapture with, the b or the d pawn. I'd say he should probably take with the d pawn and get rid of his backward pawn, but then that allows that e pawn to come up to e5 in a lot of cases. So I don't know how he feels about that. This knight is clearly misplaced. He needs to get this in the game, like knight g5 or something. If knight g5, there is this idea of knight f3 hanging in the position. Plays queen here, okay. What's the point of that? Also, can I just play queen a4 now, going after the a7 pawn? He has queen e7 to defend it. So maybe that's not leading anywhere. Four minutes remaining for me. He's preparing knight f6. That's probably the idea. He wants knight f6. Well, you know what I'm going to do? In that case, I'm going to take once, and I think I'll play queen a4 on the next move. That's the tentative plan. So if he takes with the d pawn, queen a4, queen e7, I think then I might shove the e pawn and thereby take away f6 as a square. I weaken e2 a little bit, so it's good that my rook is covering this. So knight e2 check isn't a problem. I'm kind of abandoning my king side a bit. I have to watch knight f3 ideas. He does put the queen back there. So e5 seems logical. Prevent the knight from joining the action. e6 might be an idea. We're somewhat tying him down. Okay, so he might be trying to bring this knight to a blockading role. Rook e3, maybe. f4. If f4, knight e6, what am I doing there? I'd have to defend that pawn somehow. I'm just going to play rook e3. Stay solid with my 3 minutes remaining. If he plays the knight back, I could take right away, but I'm not sure I want to trade my bishop for the knight so readily. I might play g3. G3 seems like a better way to turn the screws. Another idea of this move is try to transfer the rook over to A3. Oh, he's going to be pesky with his knights. Okay, I'm going to go back. I'll repeat the position once if he wants. So knight back to D4. What to do then? Maybe queen A3. Try to come over with the queen to the king side. Not sure my queen is doing much now that he's covered the A7 pawn. Maybe rook CD1, reposition the rook. Okay, he plays that knight in. Let's come over here. Attack that knight on F5. I have 2.5 minutes remaining. Like I said, I felt like the queen wasn't doing a whole lot on the other wing. So just bringing it back. All right, now let's play this move. Maybe H4 actually. Or F4. Let's go F4. It's a little bit delicate. I'm using some time because I want to make sure I don't like drop anything. Those knights are pesky. But I think I got everything under control. So idea F5 now. Try to kick his knights away. Queen H4 is one move I think he might consider here to attack F4 a couple times. I could probably continue with F5 in that case. Because rook F1 would run into knight takes F4, so I don't want to do that. So he's going to let me play F5, he's saying. F5, knight G5? Queen G4 then? All right, let's see it. Comes back that way. Okay, here I see a tactical problem. F6, pawn takes, queen check, and I'm hitting that rook over here. Let's do that. So opening up this queen G4 move. When he played rook C8, I saw that rook was on an undefended square. Ooh, this might allow a nice finish. Can I play queen G6, threatening mate on G7? I guess he has queen F8 as a defense. Queen G4. Queen G4 might be good. He can defend with the knight coming there. Annoying. Where's my win? This feels very close to a win. I just don't see it right now. Okay, I'm just going to come here for simplicity's sake, threatening mate. This looks tremendous, like I said, but for the moment he's defending. We allow this move.
Check.
Now that's forced mate. If he had brought a knight to E6, that might not have been so clear at the end there. He needs a knight blockading on that square. But now it's mate. King F8, queen takes F7, or king G7, king H8 rather, queen G7. Okay, let's have a look. I think my time management could have been better on that game. I spent a lot of time in the opening trying to hash out the whole knight takes G4 or H3 dilemma. So we have a Giuoco Piano. And if black plays knight F6, as I said, white has to decide between D3 and D4. At lower levels, I think D4 is a good way to play. Although if black knows their theory, this line is acceptable. I won't demonstrate all the theory. It's in other videos if you search for Giuoco Piano on my channel. So most players play D3 and simply defend the E4 pawn and play in a more leisurely fashion. This is a pretty rich type of game that can result. But my opponent played queen E7, which I was kind of giving a shout out to our local tournament director and roughly 2,000 rated player, Dan Voji, who likes this line. So I castled, he played knight F6, and then D4. So I wasn't sure that black could get away with this, because I was under the impression that they want to play D6 right here. so that after d4 and bishop back, if I were to take, they could recapture with a pawn. So they have more e5 more solidly defended. But it may be possible to play knight f6, d4, and bishop b6, as they did in the game. I'm just going to add the engine. So the engine wants to seize a little space and close up the position with d5, but I dislike that move because I feel like you're blocking out your bishop that you've already developed to a sensible diagonal, and it will kind of split the board in half. The center will become closed. Oftentimes they put the knight on d8, actually, and then they'll play d6, and the play will shift to the wings. Sometimes these positions can take on a King's Indian-like character based on the pawn structure. So I'm sort of opposed to d5 that early. I don't think white has to commit to that yet. So I just played rook e1. Now, it would be total suicide for black to do something like this and then take on e4. You can't get away with this when there's this many heavy pieces in the middle of the file. I could play knight c3, attack the knight on e4 twice, and he's in big trouble already. Black is not going to survive this. So black wants to keep the center closed until they can find a better time to play e takes d4, or at the very least castle before considering that move. Not sure about h6. I think h6 is a little slow. I was not going to put anything on g5 next, so I doubt the wisdom of that move right now. I think I would have played d6 again, or maybe castles. But d6 is always going to be useful for black. h6 may or may not be useful. It might be harmful, as it weakens like the g6 square, for instance. So h6, I played knight bd2. So one line I was attempting to figure out, again, I might have spent too much time on this, was e takes d4 and then e5, counterattacking the knight. They have to move that knight. If they take here, trying to counterattack d2, I would just take here, and I'm hitting the queen twice. That just wins. So they'd have to move the knight to one of these squares that's available. But g4 and h5, I can simply recapture on d4. And as I was discussing, it's an important point that the knight on g4 is undefended. So if they take here, trying to win a pawn, they end up losing the knight. White wins. Same thing if the knight goes to h5. It works exactly the same way. And I just figured if knight h7 or knight g8, I'm not even going to sweat being down a pawn here. You can see the eval is very much in white's favor. The computer already thinks I can go about playing for a big attack. Knight d6 is a threat now after I play knight e4. That's pretty cool. Yeah, like take. I guess I could play it right away. Point being that if pawn takes, he's caught on the e-file once again. You see how often this is a theme when they play queen e7. Basically, if you play queen e7, you have to be very aware of the e-file tension. And you can't open the file too early because something like this can happen. So it's not in black's favor to take on d4 yet. d6, again, I'm going to disregard the engine eval of d5. That plus 0.8, I think that's an overestimation by the engine. So I played knight f1. They played bishop g4. Here the engine suggests just taking and then bishop g4. Okay, so pressure on the center pawn. It would not make sense for black to capture once again with the queen and the king being lined up, but bishop g4 I could understand. It still looks somehow dangerous. I'm surprised that I don't have a e5 move or something. The computer thinks I should just play bishop e3. Maybe this also makes sense, but possibly black is okay in the resulting complications. But even though it says 0.00, I think the stakes are higher for black. Black is the one who has not castled yet and is facing this pawn duo in the center. I mean, I have some responsibility to hold on to these pawns, but in this type of play, I would rather be white. I hope you would too, because one wrong move for black could spell the end of the game. One wrong move for white, and maybe white ends up with a weak pawn structure, or in a worst case scenario, maybe losing a pawn, but the game will go on. But still, bishop g4, and I played knight e3, and then castles. So if e takes d4, what was I thinking about now? Yeah, just knight takes g4, knight takes g4, take. And I thought my position was very good with the pawn duo and the bishop pair. Yeah, I think that's the case. So knight e3 looks to be a strong move. I was calculating bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, take here, knight f5, hitting the queen, hitting g7. And I just kind of sensed that this would be okay. or very good for us. If queen f8, the only queen move to defend g7, I think I have a number of ways to proceed. The computer says bishop b5. I was also looking at this move, which is kind of forceful. Opening lines. If knight takes, then I have queen takes b7, attacking the rook and maybe threatening f4, or just c takes d4. Something like this. Yeah, and he's pinned up. If pawn takes, then I was thinking bishop b5. Attacking c6 twice, bishop and queen. Hitting e5, now that the knight's pinned. His best move is to castle on the queen side, which looks kind of dire after this. And I mean, c6 is weak. I can grab e5. It looks like black will be under heavy fire here. Maybe it's not so bad, but that's a hard continuation to work out, and that would take a lot of courage for black, and he's still worse at the end of it. So the knight coming to f5 gives white lots of opportunities. So instead, my opponent just castled, and yeah, I spent almost 3 minutes on this decision, which I think is a bit too much. I think both moves, knight takes g4 or h3, are probably good. It looks like I made the right call, though, with knight takes g4. So I was thinking about this move for a long time, but I was trying to justify this line. Once I noticed that queen e5 was a possible reply. Was it this line or the other line where I was thinking queen e5? Because here I could play bishop f4, maybe. That looks pretty good. Might have been the other line where I thought queen e5 was an issue, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, they're both probably promising, but it just seems like this is the easier way. I get the bishop pair, I relieve the pin, I ensure the safety of my d-pawn for now. After h3, knight f6, I do have this knight h4 move, and the icing on the cake as far as going for this line was realizing that knight g6 was a big threat. I don't know why that was escaping my attention for a few minutes. Yeah, and I think he's in big trouble. I mean, maybe moving the king like king h7 would be normal. Trying to sidestep knight g6. It still allows knight f5. Here the computer thinks I'm doing awesome, though. It still wants to play d5. I would probably play knight f5 instead. And let's say the queen moves, maybe here or something. Yeah, queen f3 is a good move. Threatening stuff like knight takes h6. That's a theme in this type of position. If knight takes h6, g takes h6, I would have queen takes f6. The knight would no longer be defended. So it's possible that upon knight f5, black might want to go back to d8 to keep this under guard. But here, the computer thinks my position is so good, I can already go for very crude stuff like queen d2, threatening a sacrifice on g7 or maybe h6. And I have a built-in queen-bishop battery. And black would have to play knight g8. Yeah, this looks kind of bad for him. Plus 1.3 or whatever is a lot, but I think that's a testament to white's play with the bishop pair and having a nice knight on f5 already. But still, he can probably improve on knight h7. He just overlooked the threat, knight g6. And knight f5 is also probably still good, but I'm not going to turn down the material, most likely. So queen f6, knight takes f8, rook takes f8. And this is the only bad part about this combo, is that I have to part with the d-pawn. Because if I take here, f2 is hanging. He could take it right away, or he could even just play this move first, apparently. Yeah, attack the bishop, and then go take f2 with the bishop, after the bishop problem is addressed on c4. So I played bishop e3, he took, I took. I would bet that my conversion wasn't the best starting here. I took d4, it's possible that that was not optimal. Maybe bishop d5. I thought about that move for a brief moment, but I just wasn't sure with b2 being loose, how this would work out. But if bishop takes b2, rook b1, I suppose there's pressure on b7 if this bishop moves. Yeah, this might be a more accurate way to play it. Because I did have trouble after I traded the bishops in evicting his knights. He got his knights semi-coordinated, and I'm still clearly better, but breaking down his position and converting it to a win is another matter. Bishop d5, he played b6. I went b4, attempting to break up the position. Queen e5. This was kind of a clever move. When I first saw that move, I wasn't really sure what the point of it was, but then I realized he wants to go knight f6 and attack my bishop on d5. Good idea, because he needs to improve this knight. It's not going to cut it on h7. So I took c5. He took with the d pawn. He could take with a b pawn too, but that does open the b file. In doing so, however, he maybe can hold up my e5 advance. Like in the event of queen a4, let's say queen back here, I can't get e5 in as easily, although, yeah, there is rook b1, rook b7. Maybe just go knight f6, as the computer's saying. Just do this anyways. Queen takes here. Queen g5, play for an attack. Knight f3 is an idea. Black has some initiative. So he recaptured, though. I went queen a4. He played queen e7. I played e5. So I was certainly fighting against the clock at this point. And he's not that much worse, according to the computer. Yeah, I'm sure I didn't play this the best way around here. Rook e3. Knight f5 is a good way to highlight the futility of my last move, maybe. I just played rook e3 on general grounds. I was thinking it might be helpful to double up. Maybe I could swing my rook over. Maybe it would come over to a3. But knight f5 attacks the rook, and I don't think I really want to come over here because that would leave the e-pawn unguarded, attacking my bishop. And if I go to e2, he's just going to play knight back to d4 with tempo. So I went all the way back to e1. And he probably should have just repeated here. I mean, knight e6 is not a losing move or anything, but, I mean, why play a different move other than the repetition? If he repeats, he can do it quickly. He doesn't need to think about this move. He has more than a 2-to-1 time advantage. I'm the higher rated player, presumably pushing for the win. So I may do something foolish in order to try to push. And the biggest virtue of this move is that he knows it's a safe move because he's already had this position. And he can play it quickly. He doesn't have to expend any time finding that move. So I think he should have done that. He played knight e6. I brought the queen over to e4. He played knight f to d4. And I played f4. Yeah, I expect some discontent about f4 too, or maybe some misgivings about playing that, because it does weaken my king side. I thought about h4 for a second. The computer suggestion should I cannot say this word. If there's one word in my chess videos I've been struggling with lately, it is suggestion. It's a hard word to say quickly, actually. I think that's the problem. I speak pretty fast in these videos, and that word is hard to say quickly. Suggestion. But h4 is a good recommendation from the computer because it keeps the knight out of g5. f4 does the same, but the pawn is weaker here. Maybe that queen h4 move could have punished me. I saw that move, like attacking f4, but the main point behind this move is that f5 is not possible because of, I think, this reply. Or at least that's what I thought during the game. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Let me state that again. I thought this move might be dangerous because if rook f1, trying to defend the pawn, he has knight takes f4. That's the line where the knight makes an appearance on f4. And if I take it, can you see what happens? He'll play queen takes f4, queen takes f4, knight e2 check with the fork. So maybe I would have to play f5 in that case. But what happens if f5? He could play knight takes f5. Aha. Queen takes f5, queen d4 check, and he'll pick up the bishop. Gotcha. And then, that's interesting because if you look at the material count, it's completely even. Black has a minor piece plus 2 extra pawns. But this position is better, according to the engine, and I completely agree with that. I think this position would be way easier to play as black, and black is objectively probably better too. White's e-pawn is isolated and blockaded. Black has a great pawn structure, no weaknesses really to discern. Maybe f7's a little weak, but he can easily cover it. And this knight is a monster in the middle. Yeah, I think anybody would rather be black here. Any good player would rather be black for sure, and I know a lot of lower-rated players probably would like black's position too. So yeah, queen h4 looks like the way to punish f4. That could be my one big mistake that I made in this game. Although, it must be said that I've already been drifting a little bit over the past maybe 5 moves or so. Nah, maybe more than that, 7, 8 moves. So f4 might be overreaching, but it's hard, obviously, with 2.5 minutes on your clock. But I think he He just didn't respond correctly. Rook c8 is a poor move. He puts his rook on an undefended square. I don't see the point of that move because advancing c4 is a long ways off. If anything, if he's going to move the rook, he should put it on d8, I think, and eye my bishop. That might tie my queen down. Putting on c8 doesn't really do much for him, in my opinion. So now f5. I thought he was going to play knight g5, whereupon I would have played queen g4 probably. But he played knight back to c7, and I thought I was going to win tactically here after f6. Because I saw the possibility of the queen coming over here, threatening mate, and also hitting his rook. He did this, and I got really excited because I was like, oh, queen g6, I can use this pin. He can't take me because his king is pinned. But turns out he can just put a knight on e6 or even play queen f8, I think. And for the moment, he has everything defended. Maybe I can do something like this.
Check.
And that's good. But actually, the knight coming to e6 is even better, though. Yeah, like if he puts one of the knights back here, then he's blocking my bishop. So my queen is under attack. I have no mate on g7. So I would have to do take, renewing the pin, knight takes, and then back the queen off. That would seem like an admission of defeat with that little amount of time on my clock. The computer still says I'm better, but that might not matter when I have like a minute and change left. Well, f6 felt like it was closing in on a victory for me, but it seems like he can defend. I played queen g4. Yeah, maybe bishop c4, just dropping the bishop back, removing the threat before doing anything. Because queen g4, he could have done the same thing. He could have put a knight back on e6. I wonder if he uses the other knight, if it makes a big difference. Nah, probably not. I'm probably taking his knight either way. Yeah, putting a rook on d1. This rook seems more normal to me. Versus rook ed1. Yeah, and white's probably better here. My pawns are more aggressively placed. Also, I'm still up 1 point of material. Compared to that other line earlier, where like I didn't have an f-pawn and his knight was on e6, this is a much better version. But this would be tough to win. It would still be tough to win with that little amount of time. But he blundered. He played g6. Yeah, that's just mate right there. Queen takes g6, and if king f8, we have queen takes f7 checkmate. If king h8, we have queen g7 checkmate. Okay, so yeah, I think this line is playable for black. It's just I think h6 is a move he could rule out. I think d6 would have been better. And black really has to watch, as usual in these positions, the transfer of the knight into the f5 square. And if you played h6, then g6 is also weak, as demonstrated in the game. Not a perfect game on my part. My technique could have been better down the stretch. Probably thought a little bit too long. It's the nature of the beast in these non-increment games. But rich and exciting game nonetheless. So hope you guys enjoyed it. All right, I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.